6 of my family members be taken hostage by Hamas. I just tried to not think of the worst.
I started to spot these posters around. It meant the world to me to see that other people cared about them.
Hi everyone. So as Matthew said at the beginning of the film, I'm Rabbi Abe Friedman from BZBI in Rittenhouse Square. And we have joining us Director Nim Shapira, Terr of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, Alana Zeitchik, Executive Director of the Narrow Bridges Project, and artists Nitzan, Mintz, and Dede Bandaid. I'm not going to introduce them because I could not introduce them better than the film that we just saw. And I wanted to start off, Nim, with something that I think Alicia Fine said in the film, talking about the polarization of ideas and the way that the posters, in effect, confront people with an ambiguity. And I was struck that the film itself is ambiguous. Right? There's a deep sympathy for the hostages and their families, and you don't shy away from the destruction, the pain, the suffering that has gone on in Gaza. And I'm curious to know more about your venturing into that space. Was that something you had in mind at the outset of the project? Did that evolve through the conversations that you were having?
I would say that, every time I see the film, I'm a different person, and I see the film every day. And I would say that, when the posters came up, they didn't mean the same unfortunately, they are subjective, right? So I would say ever since, as Jews, we always ask questions, and a man goes to the rabbi and says, why do Jews always ask a question when they need to give an answer? And the rabbi says, why not? So I have this cognitive dissonance inside myself and find myself maybe be more politically homeless than ever. There are so many important stories to be told after October 7, and as someone that lives in Brooklyn for 11 years, I felt that I have to explore this. I didn't understand why people are tearing down a poster of a 9-month-old baby, so that's why I wanted to make the film. And yeah, the film for me is like a ink blot. Like every time people see different things in it. I would say people that had no sympathy for the other side, no matter which team you're on, find themselves come up to me and say, now we see things. We zoomed out just a bit, so I'm very proud of that. But I learned from Alana that multiple things can be true at the same time, and that's something that I think so many people around the world at this day and age just can't fathom,
So I'll take that and I'll turn to you, Alana. In your work with Narrow Bridges Project, you're facilitating what I imagine are challenging conversations on college campuses. Are there ways that work has changed for you in the course of this year and a half since October 7th?
Well, I wasn't doing that before October 7th. And we're in the process of trying to bring it back to college campuses. It started on college campuses. So I think the way I can answer the question is that I wasn't involved in any of this before October 7th. I wasn't involved. I'm a natural mediator. But the project began on Brown University's campus several years ago, and it worked really well. And the underlying, despite there's a curriculum and there is the importance of dialogue, but the ultimate change maker, I guess, of the program is building relationships with each other. And it's for Jews to have across their own divides, because as a community, we are lacking in these close personal relationships that make it easier to have differing political views. And the reason I've taken it on as a project I want to bring back to universities is because I felt like while I was going through what I was going through, my community couldn't properly support me in a unified way, not in a uniform way, but in a unified way. It's been really hard. And I saw that fracture and it pained me. And I don't think that that's what our community should be. I think we should be focused on getting to know each other a little bit better. So that's why I took it on. And I'm hoping that we can build relationships for our Jewish college students.
Thank you. And Aaron, continuing with that theme, we saw a lot in the movie about students on college campuses who were being filmed or who were concealing their identities to avoid being identified, and consequences that were unfolding for people out in the workplace, but especially for students who might have been in leadership positions or easily identifiable. And I'm wondering now, I guess roughly, a year after when Nim was filming, that how have things evolved on college campuses in terms of specifically these issues and more generally the climate of open discourse on campuses?
Yeah, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has always been one of the most polarizing issues in this country, and I think in particular on college campuses. One of the issues that students on both sides of the issue have been particularly passionate about. And unfortunately, it's also resulted in a lot of censorship, because when people feel that strongly and passionate about the issue and are so confident that their side is entirely correct, it tends to result in a greater eagerness to silence the other side. Or you have college administrators or government officials who will be enlisted to engage in that type of censorship. And I think it was really supercharged after October 7th, where we've seen obviously a lot of protests on campus. And it's tough because it's really been a mix of peaceful protest and pro-Palestinian advocacy, but also, no doubt, many of those protests got out of hand. There was violence, there was vandalism, there were building occupations, there were threats and harassment against Jewish students. But I think, unfortunately, that both college administrators and now the federal government have not done a particularly good job of differentiating those two things. So at the same time, they don't do enough to stop the unlawful conduct, and they do too much to stop the constitutionally protected speech. And now we see, under this current administration, that they're trying to deport students who took the risk of not masking their identities, like Mahmoud Khalil, the graduate student at Columbia, who then became a symbol of these protests. But there haven't been alleged, or there hasn't been any evidence produced that they broke the law, that they violated any campus policies. But we see them, in some cases, being snatched off the street by masked government agents and being thrown in detention centers, and the government is trying to deport them, all for what would be First Amendment protected speech for any American citizen. And I think that's pretty troubling. So I think we need to do a better job of both protecting speech, but also not tolerating violence, not tolerating the type of illiberal conduct that makes it harder to have a peaceful exchange of views.
Thank you. Nitzan and Dede, I want to turn to you and ask, I got the sense that you found yourselves unintentional activists, that it wasn't what you had in mind when you came to New York. And I'm curious how both your work on creating these posters and the many different reactions to them have influenced your work and your life since this project began.
Okay, we didn't know what to expect or what to predict when we started with this project. It was something we, burned inside us to go and do outside and let people know and see and understand. And of course, we wanted to bring awareness. We felt so far and isolated, and we didn't know anyone at that point, just arriving to New York. So yeah, if you look at this project, it doesn't look like anything we do usually. It doesn't look like our art. It affected us a lot, but because of the war itself affected us, and not the project. This project, we actually felt like we were doing site-specific project. We didn't look at it as art. We just looked at something very urgent to do and take outside, and we didn't know where it's going to lead.
Our art practice as street artists led us to this moment. So life prepared us for this moment in many ways, especially as street artists. This is the reason why we thought about the posters to begin with, because this working in the streets as artists is so natural for us. And this is the way we know how to communicate with the public. That's why this campaign does not belong solely to like the digital media on social media. This is why it's physical. It's a physical object meant to be planted in the street. Our careers led us to this moment. So we have a lot of connection, like everything prepared us to this moment, but nothing prepared us to this moment. Because from the moment this campaign got viral, our lives changed completely. To begin with, we were not supposed to stay in this country, and look at us now, 1.5 years, we're still here. We were advocating for 8 months. We quit everything we did. People threatened our lives because we were appearing on TV, podcasts, live TV, interviews, you name it, we were there. So we got recognized, not because of Dede's beautiful face, because I'm exposed and we're together all the time. And people started hunting us down, and they broke into our apartment, at that time, Redwood, Queens. We had to flee, we had to move. We moved 7 different apartments. Good people, really kind people helped us, and they supplied an apartment for 1 week here, an apartment for 1 week there, and we've moved. We were on the run until the situation got a bit more stable, and we could go back into a more normal state of living. What can I say? I really remember my grandpa's words before he passed. He came from Poland and he immigrated to Israel just 10 years before the Holocaust. And he was one of those people who really smelled, he smelled. It wasn't that hard to smell it because he was bullied in the streets of Warsaw. He was hit by people, harassed. So the family, the little family just moved. So I feel the same, I can smell it. It's the same smell. And it changed, it really changed our lives forever.
3,000 Palestinians have lost their lives.
I haven't seen a single poster about my people.
It is perpetuating a completely false narrative.
Where are the Palestinians?
A genocide against Palestinians.
It's not genocide?
Seeing these faces is the ultimate challenge to the oppressed binary.
And I'm curious to ask specifically, have you had reactions from other people in the street art community to the way the project has unfolded or the way that it has woven its way through the streets of so many cities?
So the art scene, since the beginning, was a really hard place for us and for Israelis in general. So street art scene as well. Many of the artists, I don't know, as kind of a trend or were not on our side. Yeah, I'm not talking about Israeli artists. It's a different story, but like worldwide. Even good friends that we had like along the way in different residencies in different parts of the world. We stayed with them. We like a couple of years ago, we worked with them in the same studio. Everything was fine. But after the war broke and everything changed completely, they were anti-Israel. They looked at us in a different way. They unfollowed us. That was like good if they only unfollowed us, but they also they've been very vocal. And so yeah, we lost a lot of friends. The art scene was against us since day one. There was like all the thing with Art Forum letter, if you aware or not, many artists signed a list against Israel, against Zionists. Then cancel movement been very big thing.
So basically, it's a lot of happy, joy. We're being boycotted, and we produce our works and we create in our studio in Manhattan, and no gallery will show our works now. That's life. We deal with it, we live, and we will thrive and survive no matter what.
You're ripping down posters of kidnapped Jewish babies in your little Yasser Arafat scarves.
It's a trap, and you're willingly walking into the trap.
So we are going to take some questions from the community. Our friends have a train to catch, so I will remind everyone that a question is a short sentence seeking new information. And if you could raise your hand and then just make sure I can hear your question, and I'll repeat it into the microphone so everyone can hear it. Do we have a hand? Is there? Oh, yes. Sorry, it's hard for me to see you.
Hello, thank you for this, and I enjoyed your film. My question is, you say that no gallery will feature your work, and what's the ostensible reason that you're given for that? Is it because they're afraid that the gallery will be damaged, or you will be kind of doxxed, if I can use that word, or is it, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason. So if you're aware or not, Pace Gallery in New York, a very established and very respectful gallery that represented an Israeli artist, it was about a year ago, had demonstrations and their windows vandalized while the artist was inside. And that was like sample for other galleries and gallerists to see what's going to happen to them if they're going to work with Israelis.
That's just one example out of like many.
But that
windows
was like
being
very loud.
Smashed, like really harassments, violence. I can understand gallery owners. It's too much. They just want to make good business, good money. It's their income, it's their reputation. I don't blame them, but still, even the Jewish galleries are very scared to host now Israeli artists. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter left wing, right wing. It doesn't matter how deep you are, how involved you are. They will just be very scared to show Israeli artists these days.
Yes. Well, I will repeat the question after it's asked. Oh, okay, we've got a microphone. Great. I don't need to repeat it.
Do you have the opportunity to contextualize Palestinian society for people who know only about Israeli-Palestinian relationships? In other words, it's not a very democratic society. It's not a very democratic society.
Is the question about if they're able to do that through their art?
Yeah, through their art, through discussions about their art. That's the point. In other words, my sense is that people have a very narrow understanding of Palestinian society.
So I think I'll open this up for anyone who wants to speak to it about either through the film or through other experiences that you've had. Has there been an opportunity to broaden perspectives among people and how they see Israel and Palestine?
So I will say that I'll speak first for myself and then for Julia, who's also featured in the film. In terms of myself, we've shown the film over 60 times, I think, all over the country, both in film festivals, but also in a lot of colleges from Columbia, Harvard, Stanford, NYU. But the audience we're usually showing the film to is mostly Jewish. I would say that this film had a hard time getting into general film festivals or documentary film festivals, and I didn't get like your generic rejection letter. I got sometimes I was contacted by the head curator, head programmer that said that they like the film but they're not going to show it. They're either afraid or it's not. They're afraid. I would say that in terms of, Aaron spoke about the protests in schools. What is not being seen is that this is a horrible time for Jewish students, and it doesn't matter what their beliefs are. They are being ostracized. People are not engaging with them. Julia made art about Omer, and her professor told her that when she calls October 7 an act of terror in her paper, that can trigger people off because it wasn't an act of terror, it was resistance. So, and this was her professor at the New School, where we showed the film, and we had 2 armed security guards outside the classroom, and we were only 20 people. So I would say that it's very hard to engage with the other side, I know that there are people that want to engage, and I know that there are people in the middle that are the silent majority, but it's been a very hard time to talk to the other side. I would just say last thing that is two more things that are very important. One, the elephant in the room is that next month it's 600 days with 59 hostages, 24 are alive, and we don't need miracles, we need brave leaders that we lack, and this is the most important thing. The other thing is there's been a story that just now was published about a person who tore down a poster, and of course he got doxxed. After a few months he wanted to repent, and no one wanted to be in touch with him, and he found himself he spoke with a rabbi in New York, and they formed a relationship. This guy who ripped down the poster started volunteering with elderly Jews, started reading literature, and he's not a born-again Zionist. He still is very much against what's happening, but he is trying his hardest to bridge the divide. He's very ashamed of what he did. So, we need stories like that.
Alana?
I just wanted to say the other side in this context are not necessarily Palestinians. The other side are pro-Palestinian activists, and I think we have to make that distinction a lot, because I personally haven't had a hard time connecting with Palestinians from the region who want peace, who care about making relationships, who don't like the way the movement is representing them. So I think it's important to add that the other side are not necessarily Palestinians in this case. There are some here, of course, who are a part of the movement, but many who are very much not.
And I had people that I know. I was very proud that I had friends from all over the world before October 7 in New York. I heard things like the hostages are AI-generated images, the hostages are actors, and these were people that were my friends. The Israelis deserved it. These are people that were my friends. So yeah, exactly. It's been very hard, and what I always say is we have the privilege of not having rockets and missiles and bombs above our heads. We can sit down and talk, but the social fabric in New York has been torn.
I want to close. Okay, all right.
It'll be a quick
very
one.
quickly.
Yeah. My son Nate had produced the Anything Is Possible short film that played. He's a big fan of yours, Nim. Big question is, if often we're talking to ourselves because it's so polarized, what advice do the artists on the stage have for someone in Gen Z where the battleground is on how they can speak to both sides and do bridge people? Is that even possible?
It's possible, but you need to try very hard to find those people.
Yeah, and I think colleges and universities have an important role to play and can do a better job of trying to facilitate those conversations, having civil discourse clubs and things like that, where students aren't in like their separate ideological bubbles, but actually talk across lines of difference. It's great to go out there and protest, and you have a right to do that, but I think there's also a time and a place for bringing people together to try and talk and have a little empathy for the other side and try and find common ground. And I think this film does a good job. I wish more people would watch Nim's movie because I think it does a good job of taking the issue out of a typical black and white partisan frame and injecting a little nuance into the conversation and seeing where other people are coming from.
Yeah, Nitzan.
What's your name? Nate? This is a marathon we're gonna run. It's not a sprint. Be patient. You'll have your moment. Maybe this is not the right time, but you're gonna have a long, beautiful life.
She's a witch.
And
good witch.
You will make a difference. Just be very patient. Imagine yourself as a drop of water. You will melt the rock.
I'm going to add on to what you said. That's beautiful. No, that was beautiful.
I'll say amen.
Yeah. This is what I do. And patience is exactly the word, but you start small with one or two people and speak your truth, speak honestly and openly, hold space for as much as you possibly can, and start with one or two people and create a space for those people to enter what I call like a safe space, where it is not judgmental, where cancel culture is not part of the energy that you're bringing to that space. And let people find you, and they will. And that happens to me. Like, I speak and I try to create space for everyone, and I use social media to do that. And slowly people find me and they say, "Where have you been all this time?" And I said, "I've always been here. It just took you a while to find me."
And we trash social media, but social media is also amazing in finding allies and audiences.
So I was so moved by the film because I saw myself in so many of the people who were portrayed there. There was one of the hostages who unfortunately did not survive his captivity, was a close family friend, and Hirsch Goldberg Poland. And I found myself, on October 8th, I went into one of the boxes where we have different decorations, took out an Israeli flag, we hung it on the front of the house. And a week later, we were away at one of my sister's weddings, and we came home, and the flag had been torn off the front of our house. And no one came into the house, but it felt like a violation of our space. And looking at my 4 children and thinking about what are they taking from this moment, I did what I felt like I had to do, which was to buy a much larger flag and hang it higher up the house. But I was not putting up posters. If my wife was here, she would tell you I am the biggest rule follower that she knows. But I was in Israel on November 6th and 7th, and it was the Shloshim, and I was there with other rabbis. It was a mission from the Jewish Federation here in Philadelphia, and I was moved to begin putting posters up. But by then I knew that people were tearing them down. So I bought 2.5 gallons of glue, it's about 10 liters, and glued over the posters also, not just under the posters, because I thought, at least they're gonna have to work for it and maybe break a nail. And so I was, the locals will know, I'm out on the Schuylkill River path, and there's a lot of really big columns, looks really beautiful, lots of space. And I'm there with my glue and my paintbrush and my 3-year-old who's watching Frozen on the phone while I'm putting the posters up. And a woman comes over and she says, this is terrible what you're doing. And I'm thinking like, oh gosh, like this is the rule follower, right? Like I'm gonna get up, she's gonna defacing the property and the whatever. And I start explaining about the hostages and she says, well, I know that, but why are you painting over them? And I said, oh, no, it's glue, it's gonna dry clear. And she said, good, put a lot on. But of course, right, so they weren't easy to scrape off. And one of the saddest moments I had was walking through the neighborhood. I live and work in the same neighborhood, so I'm seeing my own posters that I've put up. And somebody's written colonizer across Ariel Bibas's face. And just thinking like, what the lack of understanding of humanity to say that about a 4-year-old child. And the next week, I'm, putting up the posters, and it's the afternoon, so a mother and her son are walking home from the local public school, and I hear him sort of say like, oh, what's he doing? And the mother says, well, come back, let's look. And they stand there and they look at the poster, and she begins to explain to him about the hostages. And in that moment, I felt like, you know what? Like if the poster is going to get spray painted over or whatever's going to happen to it, it did something. Someone stopped, someone noticed. And more than anything, my experience of putting the posters up here was of people offering solidarity, of people asking if these were people I knew personally, and then I had an opportunity to talk about Hirsch, of people just offering prayers for peace, for people to come home safely. And so I, especially Nitzan and Dede, I just want to thank you for creating the possibility of us having these encounters in the street with people of all kinds and of all reactions. And I would thank all of you for being here tonight. And as I promised Matthew, we're going to get you out on time. And
thank you.
And thank you all for being here.
Please follow the film's journey on torn-film.com.
Wait, say it again so that people can hear.
Just like we're going all over tomorrow. We're in Detroit. We're in New York a lot. So please follow the film's journey on torn-film.com or torn_documentary on Instagram. And we're all on Instagram, except for this guy. So, feel free to follow us, and we'll...
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. Thank you.